The Molson Coors Brewing Company by Brent Alexander Rines and Evan Antolin for Management 590. Today we'll be discussing the Molson Coors Brewing Company, or MCBC. Specifically, we'll be reviewing the industry environment, an introduction of the company, the current situation, external environmental analysis, five forces analysis, internal analysis, competitor analysis. We'll identify key problem alternatives, then what we believe to be the key problem, our recommendation, and then how to implement our recommendation. The brewing industry, the environment, is made up of primarily of three products: of beer, malt beverages / malt liquor, and non-alcoholic beer. Of the brewing industry, the most desirable market, the most desirable demographic, are males aged 21 to 35, who are the largest consumers per capita and the most likely to try new products. Of the industry as a whole, premium beer makes up roughly 50% of the industry. However, we have to be cognizant now of craft breweries that now make up 12% of all sales. So let's talk about the language there. Premium beer are the flagship beers. That's going to be Coors and Coors Light, Bud and Bud Light. We have sub-premium, such as Busch or Busch Light or Keystone Light. Those are the economy alternatives that the brands are putting out, the producers are putting out. We have super premium, like a Michelob Ultra. And then we have craft beer, which is a smaller industry brewery, hobbyists and small batch, focusing on quality with limited production. So those are about just 12% of the sales or so for the entire industry. And then the final two we have are progressive adult beverages and non-alcoholic malt and other beverages. Sometimes those are dropped into other categories. But what those are the non-alcoholic beers, such as O'Doul's, and the malt beverages, such as hard lemonades, hard iced teas, or the hard sodas that have come out recently, such as Not Your Father's Root Beer. So an introduction to the Molson Coors Brewing Company. Again, we'll see three bottles here: Molson Canadian, Coors Light, and Miller Lite. And we'll get into that shortly. John Molson founded Molson back in 1786. Friedrich Miller founded Miller back in 1849. Adolf Coors founded Coors in 1873. So again, a lot of history with these three beers going way back. The board, as of now, and the company consists of Jeff Molson as the chairman of the board, Pete Coors is the vice chairman, and Mark Hunter is the president and CEO, overseeing the four divisions split up by geographic location. The company itself is a $10.9 billion company in terms of revenue, consisting of 18,000 employees, 31 breweries, and selling brands in more than 50 countries. Just some of the labels they produce currently. Again, we see their premium beers of Coors and Coors Light, Miller Lite. We see the economy beers or the sub-premium beer of Keystone Light on there. And then we see some craft beer as well, and Blue Moon, which kind of wavers between craft beer and premium beer. And then we also see Red's Apple Ale, which actually fills the cider and malt beverage role. And then we can actually see in this bottom right corner as well a large section of their international markets. I'm not going to even try to pronounce some of those names, but we can again see the brand recognition that Molson has right now, Molson Coors has right now. And now we can see the distribution as well. We can see that their primary markets right now, the core markets, are North America and bits of Europe. And then they've got global markets reaching Russia, large chunks of Asia, India, Australia, and entrance into South America as well. Competitors in the premium beer or the brewing industry as a whole are going to be Anheuser-Busch InBev at $56.4 billion in global revenue. They are the largest and just a titan of the brewing industry. Heineken has a strong European presence and come in second there, $24.7 billion. And then we've got a 3A and a 3B. 3A is Constellation Brands, who actually have a blend of beer, wine, and liquor at $7.6 billion. So they're kind of an interesting case study there. And then the Craft Brewers Association as 3B deserves a lot of recognition at $26 billion annually. So we know that, well, they are not any unified single company, or are they public, so their information isn't exactly available. They deserve a lot of recognition right now for the market share that the craft brewers have taken. So what is the current situation for Molson Coors? Essentially, the brewing market, was once ruled by these major brands, Coors, Coors Light, Bud Light, are being chipped away by craft breweries, wine, and liquor manufacturing. And what's driven that change are millennials. Millennials are searching for smaller scale, personable breweries. And specifically, they're looking for something that they can help build the story of. And it's going to be a little bit difficult to do that with the breweries that were founded back in the 17 and 1800s. It's hard to write that story if it's already been around for a couple hundred years. And that shift in market has left Molson Coors needing to find a way to innovate and regain some of that market share. So let's look at the external environmental analysis first, some of the threats that exist there. The big one that's going to be right there, it's in some of their own annual and financial filing reports, are climate change and environmental factors. Molson Coors is extremely reliant on water rights. Water plays a huge role in the brewing processes, in addition to the agricultural needs of the supplies that go into the brewing process of the barley and wheat, etc. So MCBC is extremely aware of the need to ensure that they have longevity when it comes to the water table, to keep an eye on the snowpack, etc. The second item that we have to really look at for MCBC are the changing demographics. We know that, again, millennials are looking for brands that can help co-create and establish. And beyond that, millennials really enjoy using technology. They want to find out about new products from social media, and then they want to share their experience and stories again on social media, which is, again, different than what's classically been done when users are consuming those premium beers. So that's something that Molson Coors needs to kind of adapt to and work with in the future. Continuing with the environment are the energy and variable cost management. Molson Coors is identified that renewable energy is great for them. It provides financial savings. And beyond that, it resonates with the millennial demographic that they're trying to recapture there due to their value of environmental sustainability and working with the community. And so that's provided both a financial return as well as PR. It's really helped out there. And next, we have to pay attention to the global and national economies. MCBC success is directly linked to that economy. And, it makes sense. If the economy goes up, folks are able to purchase more premium beer, craft beer, whatever may be in that market. However, as the economy crashes, if we go into a recession, that shift goes generally from premium to sub-premium beer, which means they may be selling the same volume, but generating less revenue. So next, let's look at the 5 forces. We're going to look at, of course, Interstate 5, thanks to WSDOT there. Hopefully doing a little bit better than that. And then the force, thanks to Yoda and Disney. So the 5 forces here. The first one's the bargaining power of the buyer, the consumer. Just looking at this beer aisle in Oxnard, California, we can really see how many products are out there now and what the variation is in price, flavor, cost. We have a lot going on now. So again, that bargaining power is high. There are many options at many prices. They're purchasable in markets, restaurants, large-scale venues, airplanes, airports, all over the place now. There are many locations that they can be purchased at. And so the bargaining power the buyers have kind of draws away from MCBC's ability to market and sell at that signature line, that premium beer line. In response, MCBC has invested directly into craft breweries. So we've seen them invest with Hop Valley, Revolver, St. Archer, Terrapin, and more. We got an example here of St. Archer Brewery, this very well-polished brewery, and then Terrapin Beer Marketing. And it's important to note as well, though, that with the investment in Terrapin, Terrapin has since received criticism since MCBC has acquired them. The buying power of suppliers. Coors Field in Denver, that's going to be low. Outside of exclusivity events, again, in their own stadium or concerts that are sponsored by them, there are many alternatives available in many different locations. So that's going to be difficult for Molson Coors. The threat of new entrants is our third force we'll look at. Into the premium beer market, it's going to be difficult for new entrants. It's going to be difficult to compete with AB InBev, Heineken, Coors. But the threat of new entrants into the brewing industry is high, and we've seen that with the resurgence or the surge of the craft breweries. However, the threat of new entrants decreases with the increase in craft breweries. That's three factors. Lower in quality and standards of craft breweries hurt their reputation as a whole. So again, some get in there, that average drops, or the more just a few bad ones can hurt the overall reputation. Number two, craft breweries are prone to cannibalizing their own market, allowing premium beer producers to kind of glacially come back in there and take over some more of their market. What we mean by that is just there's only so much, again, ability that craft breweries have for folks to go out and try. They may lead to number three here, which is market saturation, kind of a war of attrition, which would allow those premium beers to come back to the forefront and become the market they once held. Number four, the threat of substitute products. Again, we're going to look at liquor and then pot or marijuana. So again, the top three substitute products are wine, liquor, and marijuana. The brewing industry market share dropped by 10% over the last 5 years. 2% of that went to wine. We can again see kind of a holiday celebration here, cheers and champagne. The other 8% of that went to that market share, which has helped Constellation brands. Again, we can see a Scotch on the rocks or some type of flaming shot in a bar. But a lot of that shift has gone to wine and liquor, 10% specifically. And in addition to those two, we have marijuana, which is now legal. So again, folks that may have been consuming alcohol and substitute to marijuana due to the illicit nature of it can now lean back into marijuana. And AB InBev has identified that and actually developed a board position for it. And Molson Coors has actually purchased a stake in a cannabis brewery operation, a 57.5% stake, to help them enter and maintain that market. So let's look at interfirm rivalry now. We can see there are many here, and it's tournament-like, right? We got a lot of big companies duking it out. So red, Molson Coors on the far right-hand side here, we can see is at 10.9 billion, which is not bad. Heineken and AB InBev are doing well, but this interfirm rivalry is high. So MCBC actually holds a good market share as a whole, but they need to maintain that. They can't allow it to slip up or drop behind there. What can affect these standings are economics, public relations, or geopolitical events. Any one of those could affect these bars, drive them up or drive them down, assuming that shift would go over. And we've seen that recently, that bad PR can really hurt those firms. Not necessarily in brewing, but in other industries. And so what Molson Coors has done to help that interfirm rivalry are more investments and partnerships to help differentiate themselves as a market. And then actually partnering it further with Hydropothecary is the company for the marijuana and cannabis beer. And then exclusivity deals again with something like the official beer of Major League Baseball. So Molson Coors has done a lot to work in that 5 force and address those. So that's part one. Moving on to part two, Mr. Brent Alexander Rines will walk you through that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. MCBC utilizes a global sourcing strategy for its key ingredients in its beer brewing operations. Most of the agricultural ingredients are sourced from either North America or Europe. MCBC gains access to water through where its breweries are located, tending to build near sources of pure water with good natural flavors. Water being the primary ingredient ensures that MCBC must work with local communities and governments to secure access to water used in its brewing operations. MCBC has wide-ranging distribution networks to gain access to customers in its primary markets. Most beer and alcohol distribution must pass through a 3-tiered distribution system that goes from the brewer to an independent distributor and finally to the retailer. MCBC also utilizes licensing agreements with breweries around the world to sell MCBC brands, generating additional sources of revenue. MCBC also licenses and brews beers for other brewers' brands, most notably Pabst and Asahi in the U.S. MCBC utilizes a differentiation strategy with some focused differentiation depending on the market. The global beer industry is going through massive consolidation as the largest breweries are acquiring smaller breweries around the world. In acquiring Miller Coors in 2016, MCBC has grown to offer over 80 different brands globally. In addition, it offers alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages as well. MCBC utilizes focused differentiation sparingly, but utilizes it where it can make a difference in sales. It offers brands that are just available in specific regions and are either longtime brands in those markets or a flavor that is only preferred by some market segments. MCBC recently went into agreement with Canadian-based Hydropothecary Corporation in order to develop cannabis-infused beverages for the Canadian market. MCBC also utilizes a product-based strategy that is built on the history of its brewing operations, working to generate a level of trust and perceived quality with its customers. It goes to great lengths to promote the purity of the water and only utilizing the finest ingredients sourced directly from the growers around the world. MCBC also utilizes a master and apprentice system for its brewmasters. All new brewmasters are placed with experienced brewers to ensure consistency in flavor across locations and generations of beer consumers. There are 4 key success factors identified by IBISWorld's most recent global beer brewing industry analysis, and MCBC is aligning its strategy with each of the 4 KSFs. The successful players in the market are each utilizing economies of scale, and MCBC is no different by merging and acquiring smaller brewers and brands around the world. By improving their economies of scale, MCBC is working to reduce overhead cost allocation, increasing throughput with its existing facilities. The second KSF is to utilize distribution to enhance access to markets globally. Most markets utilize a 3-tiered distribution system that has brewers selling to wholesale distributors and the distributors selling to retail outlets for consumers. MCBC has thousands of distribution partners as part of its global network. By building up its brands and offerings, MCBC can use its size and breadth of offerings to gain better distribution agreements, increasing profitability and access to more retailers. MCBC also utilizes licensing agreements with other brewers and markets that it does not have operations or distribution in order to gain access to these markets while not increasing operating costs. The third and fourth KSFs for global brewing support each other. By merging Molson Brewing and the Adolf Coors Company, MCBC was born to increase its differentiation and brand offerings, while growing its distribution network in North America and Europe. MCBC's acquisition of Miller Coors in 2016 further strengthened its differentiation and brand offerings, growing its global distribution network in international markets, which it did not have previous access to. Finally, MCBC is exploring other beverage options for continued diversification by acquiring a kombucha brewer in California, agreeing to invest in cannabis-infused beverages in Canada, and offering non-alcoholic options like bottled teas and other non-alcoholic beverages. AB InBev is the global beer industry leader. Its $56.4 billion in 2017 doubled up its next closest competitor. AB InBev is present in nearly every market globally and utilizes its size for major advantages in economies of scale, distribution, differentiation, and in its known brands. AB InBev has low growth in its North American and European markets, similar to MCBC, but is more actively engaged in the world's largest beer market, China. It is utilizing a similar growth financing strategy to MCBC and has seen its debt increase while stock prices decrease. Heineken NV is the second largest beer brewer in the world and about double the size of MCBC in annual revenue. MCBC and Heineken compete globally, but with more direct competition for the European markets. Heineken has a large and varied brewing and distribution network. Heineken is focusing on developing African and Asian markets to drive its growth. Heineken acquired Asia Pacific Breweries in 2012 to better compete in China and other Asian countries. Heineken is utilizing debt to finance its global acquisitions in the competition to gain market share and economies of scale. Constellation Brands utilizes a diversified strategy while competing with the big 3 in the beer industry. It not only offers a wide selection of beer brands, it also owns interests in wine and liquor production. Constellation has seen much better stock performance in recent history than the big 3 breweries, mostly based on its debt avoidance and its acquisitions, and its strong financial performance and diversification outside of the beer industry. Constellation Brands acquired Grupo Modelo in 2016 to focus on Latin America and South America in an effort to drive its growth initiatives. It has no direct Asian market presence except for utilizing licenses with other brewers to access the developing Asian markets. We identified three key problems for MCBC in relation to its performance and its standing amongst its competitors. The North American and European beer markets are mostly mature. Most beer growth in North America is driven by the craft brewing industry, and premium beers are growing at a much slower pace than annual economic growth in North America. The competition in these markets is intense as the large premium brewers seek to create brand loyalty with the key demographic of 21 to 35-year-olds. The second issue is that prior to the Miller Coors acquisition in 2016, MCBC was utilizing less debt than its primary competitors. In order to reach a larger international market and improve its economies of scale, it began to utilize debt to finance its growth. This has had a less than promising effect on its stock price since late 2016. MCBC's debt is lowering, but at a very slow rate. The third issue is that the industry landscape has shifted in recent years. There is more demand for craft beer worldwide. The millennials prefer the quaintness and individuality that comes from the craft beer experience in addition to the hoppier offerings. Liquor is considered a growth industry as younger consumers prefer liquor over beer. The liquor industry is also experiencing a craft awakening as more craft distilleries are opening up around the world. As cannabis legalization increases in the U.S. and has become fully legalized in Canada, some consumers are turning towards recreational cannabis over alcoholic beverages. This is a trend that is expected to continue over the next decade. We have identified the shifting industry landscape as the single most pressing issue for MCBC. With its primary markets in a mature stage, growth opportunities are limited without acquisitions and investments in alternative beverage industries. Our first recommendation to overcome the shifting industry landscape is to acquire one of the largest remaining independent craft breweries in North America. This will create growth in North America with a well-known brand that can be expanded into other markets. In addition, this will give MCBC access to the chain of Samuel Adams brewhouses located in the U.S. for further diversification. The second recommendation is to follow Constellation's lead and diversify into alternative alcoholic beverage markets. With millennials turning to liquor more frequently than beer, MCBC can target a few of the craft and mid-sized distilleries that have grown in popularity in recent years. The third recommendation is to license its more prominent brands to breweries located in China and other Asian nations. This is the most cost-effective method to overcome the shifting industry landscape and increase its revenues. However, MCBC will lose control over its brands in the licensed market, possibly leading to long-term damage for the company. We believe that the best course of action for MCBC is to acquire the Boston Beer Company. By acquiring BBC, immediate cost savings can be gained to improve profitability and continue to pay down debt from this and other recent acquisitions, improving overall stock performance. We recommend that MCBC offers current BBC shareholders a premium to buy out their shares either through cash or MCBC stock equivalents. We also recommend that MCBC be mindful of its debt position and issue additional common stock to assist with financing the acquisition of BBC. We understand that this may further drive down stock prices in the interim. However, the long-term results in debt reduction will repair and any damage to current stock prices in the coming years. Further financial improvements will be gained as additional economies of scale are developed for BBC and MCBC, increasing operating income. By combining large brewing operations, BBC's brand profitability will increase and overhead costs for MCBC's operations will decrease. BBC brands will gain immediate access to global markets where they had not previously been competing. The new brands will help MCBC drive growth in other existing markets, helping to improve costs as it can control more volume through existing operations and distribution channels. By acquiring BBC, MCBC can stay focused within an industry that it knows. MCBC has the existing operations and distribution networks required to integrate BBC into its portfolio while enabling cost savings for BBC's known brands. Additionally, MCBC can capitalize on the Samuel Adams Brewpub concepts to further highlight its existing brands, growing controlled market access while generating a more personal feel as consumers shift towards craft breweries and other brew pub concepts. MCBC can use the knowledge it acquires in the brewpub concept to expand the idea globally and gain better brand recognition and more personalization as consumers increasingly demand more personalized experiences. On behalf of Evan Antolin and myself, Brent Alexander Rines, thank you.